Welcome back to another episode of No Shame with Shane. I'm your host, Shane Fordham, with all the shameless sports takes. I know it's been a minute. I apologize for my absence. I just started a new job last week, so I didn't have a lot of time to shoot and record and stream how I usually do. But I am back. For those who don't know, I am now a news and sports reporter for ABC's 13 News Now in Norfolk, Virginia. Kind of living my dream, got the job of my dreams. So last week was my first week. Had to lock in, had to focus, make sure that I am on my A game, know everything I need to know, am able to do everything I need to do, in order to be the best reporter and storyteller that I can be. But right now that my schedule is set, I'm back. I'm back on No Shame with Shane. Back to talk some ball, some Eagles ball from yesterday. Getting it done against the Saints in New Orleans at the Dome. In watching that win, watching that game, the Eagles clearly had two opponents yesterday as opposed to one. On one side, you got the Saints. On the other side, you have Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni was honestly a bigger obstacle to the Eagles yesterday than the Saints. I mean, you choose to go for it on 4th and 1, 14 seconds left in the first half. You're in field goal range. Instead of taking the 3 points to close out the half, and then using your next drive to open up the third, because they get the ball back in third. They started with the ball at the beginning of the game, so they get the ball back in the third. You go for it instead of kicking to close off the half and using your first drive, opening drive in the third quarter, to solidify a lead. It was so many decisions like that so many questionable play calls from Nick Sirianni yesterday that, I mean, you really got to wonder, why is he still the head coach of this organization? I mean, Nick Sirianni's play calling was a bigger obstacle to the Eagles offense than the Saints defense. The Saints defense really didn't do much yesterday to stop the Eagles. I mean, all of their biggest stops yesterday were off of Jalen Hurts' mistakes and the offensive play calling. For example, like the 4th down yardage abuse, going for it continuously on 4th downs, and then from choosing to not involve our best offensive player in Saquon Barkley until the second half. So, I mean, how many times do you have to go for it on 4th down before you finally just decide to take the points? Like you're fine. Like, you would rather take a 30 and 40-yard field goal away from Jake Elliott, but you're fine letting him kick a 60-yarder. Like, it's the play calling like that blows my mind. Like, there is no reason why the Eagles should not be willing to move on from Nick Sirianni after this season. There's no reason why. And then on the other hand, Kellen Moore waited way too long to get Saquon Barkley involved in that game yesterday. There is no reason Saquon Barkley should have only had like 5 carries in the first half. I mean, especially after what he did against the Falcons last week, aside from the dropped ball, I mean, he was averaging almost 10 yards a carry in that entire first half against the Falcons. Like, what are we doing? Why back away from that? Feed him, give him the ball. Like, when Kellen Moore started feeding Saquon Barkley, that opened it up for Dallas Goedert to do what he did yesterday. You don't get 170 yards receiving from Dallas Goedert without the rushing performance from Saquon Barkley. 140 yards rushing, averaging almost 8 yards a carry. You don't get one without the other. Dallas Goedert was an example of how potent this offense can be if Saquon Barkley is utilized early. And what I mean by that is anyone on this offensive group can explode on any given night if Saquon Barkley is utilized properly. One night it can be from AJ Brown. The next week, Devontae Smith can go off. The next week, Dallas Goedert can go off and hurt a defense the way he did yesterday. Then it can maybe even be Jahan Dotson who can go off and hurt a defense with how spread the field would be. I mean, the utilization of Saquon Barkley, it spreads the field out for all of the other guys on the offense. Like, in order for this offense to be a true nightmare for defenses, Saquon Barkley has to be the base of this offense the same way that Christian McCaffrey is the base of that 49ers offense. I mean, everything Christian McCaffrey is able to do on the field, it opens it up for Debo, for Ayuk, for Juwan Jennings, for Kittle. It opens it up for those guys to be able to produce and alternate explosion roles on any given night, which is why the 49ers offense is so dangerous. That is what this Eagles offense needs to look like. Having a guy like Saquon Barkley, it's meant to make it easier on everyone else in the offense, including the quarterback. A guy who can sustain an offense both through the run and the pass. So I really hope Kellen Moore is able to take that and learn from it this game and not make the same mistake next week. Saquon Barkley has to be involved early and utilized early in order for this Eagles offense to be as dangerous as it can be. Like, you can, in terms of all the other skill players, not everyone has to be involved every single night. Like, AJ Brown doesn't have to be a huge contributor every week. Devontae Smith doesn't have to be a huge contributor every week. In order for this offense to be dangerous, Saquon Barkley has to be a constant and consistent force in this offense every week. He has to be a common theme in this offense and in the offense's production. So, I mean, having a guy like Saquon Barkley, like I said, it stretches the field out. It opens up the field for everyone else on the offense. But something it also does, it also makes the quarterback's job easier. Jalen Hurts will have less work to do if Saquon Barkley is utilized in the correct way. The way Kellen Moore utilized him against Green Bay in week 1. We need to see that every week. Not saying Saquon Barkley has to have 3 touchdowns every week, but in terms of feeding him, getting him opportunities, because now defenses won't know what to do. They won't have an answer for that. Because now you have to worry about Saquon in the run and the pass. Then you also have to worry about AJ and Smitty on wide out with 2 opposite sides of the field. Then you also have Dallas Goedert, who showed that he can also be a guy who can explode, having over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown on a week. So the utilization of Saquon is so important. But relating more to Jalen Hurts, it prevents Jalen Hurts from having to make as many save-us plays with his legs as he's used to doing. You know, having a guy like Saquon, you know, a dynamic running back, a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you know, guys who can get it done through the air and on the ground, it prolongs the career of your quarterback. So having Saquon on the team, it's also an investment in Jalen Hurts' future. They have to be able to, you have to make use of that investment, use of this asset that you brought in, because it'll also make your quarterback better. Jalen Hurts will be a better quarterback playing with Saquon Barkley. Now, with that being said, Jalen Hurts does have to do a better job of taking care of the football. Jalen Hurts did more to hurt himself yesterday than the Saints defense did to hurt him. I mean, just a lot of things he did to himself, like forcing the ball to the end zone towards Tyrann Mathieu, who is one of the best DBs in the league, resulting in an interception. then being loose with the football behind the line of scrimmage, scrambling to his left, resulting in a strip sack, forced fumble recovery. I mean, the Jalen Hurts hurt himself more than the Saints defense did to hurt him. Jalen Hurts, that was by far the worst performance I've seen from Jalen Hurts as an Eagle, by far. I mean, just making, bonehead mistakes that, really put the team in a position to lose, against the Saints team. But with that being said, Jalen Hurts at his worst is still a 300-yard passer. I mean, at his worst, 300 passing yards, over 300 passing yards, almost 30 rushing yards, a game-winning drive, all of which were without his two receiver ones and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. His future Hall of Famer right tackle Lane Johnson being out for a good portion of that fourth quarter. His starting right guard in Mekhi Becton also being out. Jalen Hurts still was a winner. He still put the team in a position to win when it mattered most. He still produced through the air. He still produced with his legs. But Jalen Hurts isn't top 10. Jalen Hurts at his worst was a 300-yard passer, 311 passing yards at his worst. His two receiver ones out of the game. Two starters on his O-line out of the game. Rookie center. Jalen Hurts was still productive. But Jalen Hurts isn't top 10. Jalen Hurts isn't better than Justin Herbert or CJ Stroud or Jared Goff or Dak Prescott. There's no way you can look at Jalen Hurts' production and think that he is not a top 10 quarterback at least. Jalen Hurts yesterday, at his worst, looked better than a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL at their best. So Jalen Hurts definitely needs to do a better job of taking care of the football. But that also should show you how scary this offense is with Jalen Hurts still having 2 turnovers. It's still a 300-yard passer. Dallas Goedert has shown the world that he is a guy who can rack up over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown, who can cook a defense. Having a guy like Saquon Barkley on the team with a healthy A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, this offense can be scary if these kinks are worked out. And it's still week 3. So we have a lot of time before it comes time to that postseason time of the year. This offense can be scary if Kellen Moore utilizes this offense the way that it is meant to be used. He did a great job in week 1. Did a great job last week, aside from that last play call to that pass to Saquon on 4th down when we needed less than a yard. Kellen Moore has to be willing to get Saquon Barkley involved early in order for this offense to be as potent as it can be. So the offense definitely has some things it needs to clean up leading up to next week. But with that being said, the defense played strong. We saw everything we needed to see out of this defense yesterday. And it started with the pass rush. We've been waiting for the pass rush to wake up for 2 weeks now. They weren't really a factor against Green Bay. Jordan Love had all day to throw the ball. That was a shootout. Kirk Cousins had all day to throw the ball. Our pass rush made Kirk Cousins look like Tom Brady in that game in Philly at the Link. Our pass rush was so non-existent. Kirk Cousins looked like Patriots Tom Brady marching down the field on us for a game-winning drive, game-winning touchdown to Drake London. So the pass rush coming alive yesterday, it really changed the whole vibe of the defense. I mean, Derek Carr was not comfortable in that pocket yesterday. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Derek Carr did not have nearly as much time to throw the ball as Kirk Cousins did last week. That's what we were waiting on. And it really made the whole defense better because the how effective the pass rush was, it really saved the secondary in a few instances that could have been touchdowns. Like, for example, the shot that the shot that Derek Carr tried to take to Rashid Shaheed deep down the field after Shaheed had really beaten Quinion Mitchell off the line clean, had a nice lead on him. But the pressure forced Derek Carr to have to throw off his back foot, which gave Quinion Mitchell more time to recover and to chase down the ball and prevent the catch, which could have been a touchdown. It was a lot. It was a few instances like that where the pressure from the D line saved the secondary. It saved the entire defense from a touchdown pass. Because Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are some explosive receivers. And I posted before the game yesterday that if Derek Carr had all day to throw the ball yesterday, Chris Olave and Shaheed would have had a field day. Not because our DBs are bad, but because you can't expect a DB to cover up a receiver for 10 seconds. I mean, great if you can. But if we gave Derek Carr as much time as we gave Kirk Cousins last week, it could have really got ugly. Because Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed are looking like really one of the fastest receiver and most explosive receiver duos in the league right now. They can beat a DB clean off the line. They showed that yesterday. But our D-line pressure is what we were missing. Our D-line pressure is what made the entire defense better. And the pass rush starts with Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter has to take a step forward in his development in order for this defense to really be lethal this year. And we saw some of that yesterday. Jalen Carter is going to be the future of this defense because if the pass rush being good makes everyone else on the defense better too, makes everyone else's job easier. So I loved what we saw out of this defense yesterday. The defense is really what won us this game. The defense really saved the offense in yesterday's matchup against the Saints. And a big reason for this great defensive outing for the Eagles was Zach Bond. I'm loving Zach Bond more and more every week. He's great. He's great against the run. He's good in pass coverage. He was good in pass coverage yesterday, aside from that wheel route to Alvin Kamara. And he was even setting edges. Fangio had him setting edges yesterday. He's a guy who you can use as sort of a fifth guy on the line, someone who can set the edge and squeeze the ball towards the inside to where Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis and Milton Williams and Milton Williams can make plays, for Brandon Graham to make plays. Zach Bond was really doing everything for the Eagles yesterday. He did everything for the Eagles last week against Atlanta. I'm really liking the way Fangio is using Zach Bond within this defense. I really think Zach Bond, with what we've seen from him so far, Zach Bond is going to be a vital piece to this defense and to this team's success for sure. He's right now, Jalen Carter and Zach Bond are looking like the best defensive players on the team right now. The best ones. And CJ Gardner-Johnson. So I'm really loving what I'm seeing from Zach Bond. I really love what I saw from Jalen Carter yesterday, stepping up as, really someone who is going to be the leader of that D line, in a year or two, so it was a great outing by this defense, because if the defense doesn't play the way it did yesterday, the Eagles don't win that game. if you don't get that sack from Jordan Davis, if you don't get the coverage that we saw from Quinion Mitchell and CJ Gardner-Johnson, and from Darius Slay, if you don't get the pressure that Josh Sweat was getting on Derek Carr, the pressure that Milton Williams was putting on Derek Carr, the pressure that Jalen Carter was putting on Derek Carr, the tackles that Jalen Carter was able to make from the D tackle position, the Eagles don't win that game. So really, really pleased with this defense. The Eagles definitely have some things they need to clean up on the offensive side of the ball, but nothing that can't be fixed. So I'm really happy. It's really more reassuring to see what we saw out of this defense yesterday. And I'm really excited to see what we could see from this team as the kinks are smoothed out as we progress through the regular season. But that's all for this edition of No Shame with Shane. If you haven't already, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media platforms. And I will be back next time with more shameless takes.